cost of living is literally out of control, and car buyers are having to make some really hard decisions. And if you saw yesterday's video, you'll know what I talked about, some of the steps people are taking because they can't afford a new vehicle. And the vehicle, unfortunately, isn't even a nice to have. It's a vehicle that people need to get to work to earn the money to even just stay afloat and stay alive. And unfortunately, people have been reaching out to me via email, commenting on some of the things that they've had to do to cut back on the cost of living, and they've had to get really, really tough just because it's so expensive to live today. People are moving into tents, getting creative with the way they eat. People, unfortunately, are having to give up their cars and houses. Rent is going up. People just can't afford to live. And now there's some drastic changes where people are having to make some decisions. I can't afford to buy a car. I might do something a little bit different. You know, I even heard of some people that actually spend the time, they wait for the local cafeteria to open up where they can go in, and instead of buying the soup because they can't afford the soup, they go grab about 5 or 6 packages of ketchup as well as 5 or 6 packages of crackers, and they make themselves a ketchup and cracker sandwich because things are just getting so rough and tough out there. But I mean, that's on the extreme side. We also see people, the cities are growing when tent villages. People can't afford a $15 Big Mac meal, and the cost of living is just getting out of hand. Obviously, rent prices are up, car prices are up, MSRP on new vehicles, used cars are holding high, and the dealers are just trying to play the game that they were winning on about a year and 2 years ago. But clearly, a lot of people are getting onto that and getting smarter, but the fact remains is a lot of those dealers are still living in yesterday, and people are struggling just to buy anything. The bottom line is the cost of living is so high, people, instead of buying cars, are making a decision. Maybe should I take public transit? Maybe I should just ride my bicycle? Maybe I can walk? Or maybe carpooling with 2 or 3 other friends is what it's going to take to get me to work on time. So people are getting very creative, and it's unfortunate because in a world that we have today, we shouldn't be in a place where we're having to scratch and claw for $1. But this is clearly what's starting to happen. Cost of living is so high, cost of car ownership is even higher. So then I look specifically in Canada. I mean, the same situation's going on in the US. Obviously, US dollar is a little bit less, but the same phenomena is having in Canada, US, it's going on all over the place. But in terms of Canadian dollars, the average selling price of a new vehicle in September of 2023 was going for about $67,817, and that's about a 19.4% year-over-year increase. It's getting out of hand. The Auto Trader even says that on top of those increases, it doesn't look like the used car market's going to get any better. It's flat, but it's certainly not dropping any significant amount. While we're seeing some changes in the wholesale market, that's the problem. The dealers are getting these vehicles at reductions, obviously going down to the auctions, picking up these vehicles, but they're still listing them at prices higher than they should be. They're escalating their margins, they're increasing their margins on used car vehicles. And us in the retail market aren't seeing that drastic drop. We're still seeing that stability because a lot of these manufacturers and OEMs and dealerships are still holding their prices strong. So the market and their actual profit margin is actually increasing because they're holding their retail, but they're getting a better deal on the wholesale market because we're seeing auction prices are starting to slide. It's getting so rough, in fact, that $1,387 is the average cost monthly for used car ownership. And in some cities, for example, like Winnipeg, that's what some people are paying to rent a 1-bedroom apartment. It's either a car or an apartment. You make your choice, but that's what the decision a lot of people are trying to come up with, and the struggles are real. Well, I mean, obviously it's going to vary. If we're talking about the big cities like Vancouver or Toronto, or even in the US side, we go to some of the expensive cities, for example, Los Angeles and Miami and New York, Seattle, some of those cities that are clearly high cost of living. Some of those numbers are going to be much, much higher for rent or house ownership. There is some variability in that whole conversation, but experts actually warn and suggest don't get in over your head and spend any more than 15 or 20% of your take-home earnings on a vehicle. They should never exceed that. Otherwise, you're infringing on cost of living. Housing is your number 1, food is number 2, and the cost of ownership for 3 is the third point. That's obviously in that order. A lot of people are spending a lot as well on schooling, but that's the younger buyers. But people, unfortunately, are having to make some very difficult decisions nowadays. So what are those factors that are actually costing that $1,387 per month of car ownership expense? And would you believe it, it's not the actual cost and purchase price, it's all the other factors around it. The average depreciation for late model vehicles is about $592 if you equate that. Interest charges on your financing as well could equate to about $195, and this, of course, is based on the average vehicle purchase price. Parking, for a lot of people that end up parking parking downtown and have to pay daily parking, $200 a month is actually a good deal because in a lot of places it's actually a lot more than that. But we're incorporating $200 a month for parking, also another $200 for gas, which I can actually attest. I drive a Ram, and at $200 I'm spending more like $400 or $500 a month for gas strictly because I'm using a tank a week, over $100 a week, and there we go. Lo and behold, we're spending $400 or $500 a month for gas. Car insurance average about $111 a month, and that's for a very basic vehicle if you've got a good record. And maintenance costs, if you defer and spread it out over the course of a year, it breaks it down to about $79 a month for your average cost. We're talking average vehicles. Nobody's driving a Ferrari in there. We're talking about Hondas, Toyotas, Chevys, and of course vehicles that are more mainstream. That's the average cost, and that all totals almost $1,400 a month. Again, as I say, bump up the gas price, now you're to that $1,600, $1,700 a month, and now people are deciding, maybe I should just park this car or truck or sell it or do something different. Maybe take public transit instead. It's much simpler. It's fixed price. I know what I'm getting. It's almost door-to-door service. Now, obviously, you can save some money there if you carpool and you're only spending half the gas as well. If you put more down payment, you can reduce the amount of money you're paying for your car. You can also reduce the interest charges if you're actually having to maintain a higher credit score. If you're actually a good lender, you can maintain better scores there, as well as insurance. If you keep a good record there as well, keep your speeding down, do it yourself, a little bit of maintenance that you might be able to take on yourself. Not everybody can do that, but if you're like me, once in a while I'm game for a set of brakes or an oil change. And if you can do some of that work yourself, that's money in the pocket as well. Now, we have seen used car prices stay fairly flat, and mainstream hasn't changed all that much, as I already said. Unfortunately, dealers are getting a bigger break at the auctions, but then they're not transferring that over to you, the buyer, on the retail market, and now that just leaves us in a snooker. And they're holding their hard line, largely because they think they can, because MSRP prices on new vehicles are continually to escalate. We talk about the new Dodge Ram and some of their tungsten editions going up $14,000 from a previous model. Dodge, Ram, Stellantis, they're losing touch with who the actual buyers are of some of these vehicles. Pickup truck buyers, Jeep owners, those people aren't luxury car owners. Those are people, everyday people like you and I, just trying to get around, take the kids to school, go to the cabin on the weekend, and just enjoy our leisurely drive in the country once in a while, but without a whole lot of extra luxury amenities. But they're charging for luxury car prices. You're going to pay as much now for a full-size pickup truck as a mid-level BMW or an Audi. It's just absolutely lunatic. And last year, the average used car price went up as well, 4.3% to be exact, and now it sits around $39,155 for your average used car cost. And as a result, used car monthly payments are substantially lower at about $765 a month. It's still not an insignificant amount of money. At almost $800, you're infringing on bachelor territory in terms of a suite or a single bedroom in some places, in some locations, in poorer neighborhoods. It's still a rent for some people. I've actually spoken to some people as well. I said, you know, Costco had this great bicycle. It's a fat tire bicycle that's a pedal assist or battery assist, and they're actually going to buy that for about $1,700, knowing that if you spread that out, return on investment is much better than buying a vehicle, and they get a little bit of exercise, they can get to work, and as well, they save a ton of money. No extra insurance to cover there, no fuel costs. Yes, you got an upfront cost to buy that bicycle, but some people are making that choice. I've seen people buy those electric powered scooters as well to scoot around if they have short distances to go. I've seen people get standard bicycles for $300-400 and then commute daily as well. And I know a lot of people that have elected to park their car, stuff it in the garage, and then basically pull the insurance, put basically fire and theft on it, and just ride the bus for the next year or 2 years until they can get slightly ahead where they can afford to pay for insurance and gas again, because things are that tough. So they're taking the bus, they're taking the transit. These are decisions, hard decisions people are making. And as well, some other decisions you can make. If you watched my video yesterday, then you'll probably know what I said is what some people are doing. Instead of buying these brand new $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 trucks, if they happen to have an older truck, then they're maybe happen to clean it up, do a little extra service on it, and try to buy another 3 or 4 years out of that vehicle that they currently own, instead of going out and dumping that whole pile of cash and being upside down in a loan payment. It's just a lot easier to drive what you got, bring what you got, and actually literally live the simpler life. That's where people are getting. That's a reality in today's lifestyle. And with all of that said, check out right there. Yes, in fact, truck dealers are starting to panic because their overpriced, highly priced new pickup trucks are being ignored, and customers are starting to make different decisions, like possibly fix up their own old trucks. Hope to see each and every one on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.